Alastair, first off, George, will he play this week?
Yeah, we think he'll. He got a corky out of the Port Adelaide game and was unable to train. In a session before the game against Essendon last week. So 5-day break, unable to train. We just thought it'd be better off having a rest, and he's fired up and ready to go this week.
How sort of frustrating has it been for him, all the setbacks, and what modified program do you have to have for him throughout the year just to make sure everybody's right?
It's pretty much whether it was George or anything that's happened with his history or any other player. If they've come out of the game, cork's eye, unable to train, not the ideal preparation for any player to not do any training session at all before playing the game. So, and then we factored in some of the history where he'd only been back for 2 games, and it's just like, well, why would we even take the risk? This is just madness. So, in your own mind, you're trying to say, geez, a disappointment. Did we want him to play? Did he want to play? Yes, to both those questions. But then we say to ourselves, well, at least we get a fresh bloke next week. And where we do know he has had good preparation, he has recovered from his thigh, and he's ready to go, and that's exactly the case. So, as disappointed we were to miss him from last week's game, we're excited he's back, but we've got a fresh and fit George Wardlaw, whereas last week he would have been playing at maybe 80 or 90%, and we just can't afford to take the risk with guys like that.
The reigning premiers on Sunday, is that an exciting challenge for the guys?
Yeah, well, you're going to really need to test yourself, aren't you, against a high quality midfield. You know, they've been really good side for a long period of time, and under Faye's got the premiership they've been chasing last year, and then 7 wins and a loss. Looking really formidable again this year. So we know it's going to be a really tough contest. It's down there on our home away from home down at Ninja Park. So yeah, we're looking forward to the contest. It'll be a good test for us.
They've got a really strong midfield. Do you put time into any of those guys, like Neil?
Yeah, or you go and try and close down Neil, and then McCluggage pops up, or Dunkley. Put Rainer in the middle at different stages. So Bailey and these sorts of guys. So they're just the depth of the midfield is why they're a high quality side. So we'll be trying to stop some of those weapons through there without a doubt. But we need to go and play the game ourselves too, and try and use the ball as best we can and get it forward for our guys to be able to kick a score. So, but without doubt, and coaches say it every week, the midfield battle is going to be crucial, and if we can compete really strongly in that area, then we give ourselves some sort of chance.
How's Jackson Archer going?
He's pretty disappointed, Arch. You know, he had that suspension out of the round 1 game, and then in a training mishap, he strained a hamstring, and then he gets himself back into the side, plays the Port Adelaide game, and then hurts himself halfway through the second quarter of the Essendon game. So disappointed that he's going to miss a lengthy stretch. I think he'll be 6 or 8 weeks out with this particular injury, which is unfortunate, and that digs deep into his season. So that's where the disappointment lies. But he's a pro. All the boys here love him as a teammate, and we think he's got a huge future at our footy club. And it's just a setback that young players have to endure. And Josh goes in a similar sort of situation. These young players who just find it hard to get continuity with their footy in the early parts of the year of their careers as they get used to the rigours of the game. And Archer's going through that himself at the moment, but he'll respond. He's a ripper. He's a real pro, and we'll get him back up and going as soon as we can.
I know you don't name the team until tonight, but is there anything else we should be aware of?
No, I don't think so.
There was obviously a lot of attention on Harry last week through no fault of his own. Like, how's he going at the moment in the lead up to this game? Yeah,
he's going well. The scrutiny and critique, we expect that. We're in a game that's just such a it's like a religion. This game in this country, and it's a beautiful part of our game that there's just so much interest in it. But with the critique, if we think that it's untoward or just a little bit over the top, then we'll protect our people big time. And we thought we needed to take a stand as a footy club to just ensure that if we felt our our players were being unfairly tarnished. We understand the critique and we understand that the debate that will come with performance, and particularly when you're not performing as well as you possibly could. You know, Harry's in particular set himself a pretty high benchmark for a guy that's only just into his third year. Just had his 50th game a couple of weeks ago. But with that high benchmark comes scrutiny if you're not quite to the level that you're playing with, and he understands that. But when it just becomes a little bit over the top, then we'll protect our people.
I know he's not at the club anymore, but Taryn's obviously been in trouble again last week. Does the AFL need to do more to support those ex-players that are sort of, trying to find their way once they leave the game?
Yeah, well, perhaps that's a question for the AFL more so than it is for us. But all we know is we don't know the depth of what's transpired in terms of the most recent occurrence. But there's a lot of people at this footy club that still care a lot for his welfare and what's going on in his life. So our club has reached out to him, and I'm sure the AFLPA and the AFL are concerned for anyone that's played the game and the mistakes that young men make along the journey, and how can they rectify themselves and get on with their lives again. So I'm sure it's a concern for our club, a concern for the AFLPA, and a concern for the AFL, and obviously a concern for Taryn and his network of people that's supporting him, friends, family. But what we're hoping is through all that support he can find a pathway forward that allows him to get back on the right track with his life, but also somewhere in the future get the opportunity to play footy again.
There was a report yesterday that State of Origin is going to be back in February. Would you be supportive of that if that happens in February and takes place? Yeah,
well, I think State of Origin is a great concept. The big challenge for the AFL and all the players is when during the season do you play it, and that's the most difficult part. From a club perspective and a player perspective, the challenge with it, if it's right at the start of the season, players don't want to risk getting significant injuries and then perhaps lose significant chunks of the season because of that. That's why it was mooted, okay, we'll do it towards the end of the year, but then when do you do it at the end of the year? If they had if prelim final weekend was the week off rather than the end of home and away as the week off in the finals, perhaps you could do State of Origin preliminary final week, and then they say, yeah, but you wouldn't have the players from the grand final playing in that game. So you just can't win with it. We all love the concept of State of Origin, and we see just how popular it is in rugby league. But as we become a national game, and it's been really, really difficult to work out where it fits into the schedule. So deep down, we've all got enormous passion for it, but just working out where it fits into the program has been the reason why it hasn't been in the program for the last decade or more.
Is it also hard to make it work, because in NRL they've just got New South Wales, Queensland, but the AFL, so many different states involved? Is that also? Yeah,
I think that provides a challenge, because we've got, there's three really, really significant and powerful, historically, three really, really significant and powerful football states in South Australia, Western Australia and Victoria. And you can't have all three on the field at the one time. So you're right, that makes it a little bit more challenging. I'm sure if the AFL make a call on it, they would have done so with support from the players themselves through the PA. And if the players are making the call and the AFL make the call that they want to schedule a game, it doesn't matter what I view or the club or anyone else. If they think that's what's best for the game, then we'll support it. Because, as I said, it's been a real feature of our game, especially through the 60s, 70s and 80s, and it'd be great to somehow rehash all that again. But our game is very, very different than it was 20 or 30 years ago when State of Origin was a real powerful part of our game.
We haven't seen you since Sunday, since you went back to Hawthorn. What was that like personally to go back and take part in those celebrations? Yeah,
well, as I said, I couldn't pay tribute to them in person, obviously, because Yabby and Kanga are no longer with us. But I wanted to be there to acknowledge how revered they are as figures of our club, and but then be amongst all the other revered figures of the footy club, like the David Parkins and the Peter Hudsons and the Dippers and Dunstalls and all these guys that were very, very significant and decorated in the history of that club. So it was special to be back part of that, and to have all the 13 cups there and all the significant people that are attached to that, Peter Knights and these type of guys, Lee Matthews, these are names that certainly if you're a Hawthorn supporter, they're just revered right around the club. But these are names that have been at the forefront of the game for the last 50 and 60 years. So to be a part of that was a pretty special day.